What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're late again, as we usually are on Fridays. But this time we're really late because, for some reason, my audio device decided that it didn't want to produce output so that OBS can read it or hear it, let's say. So I was fighting with everything for a little while, and then decided to just reboot the machine, and it worked after that. So I don't know, something really weird is going on with the USB ports in this Framework laptop. I mean, I love the laptop, but every now and then, either the camera capture device or the audio device doesn't work, like right before a stream. And I'm not 100% certain that, I'm not certain where it's coming from. I need to try to update my kernel again, see if maybe there's a kernel issue, but it could be a hardware issue. I don't know. Not exactly sure what the deal is. Let me say hello to the folks who are here so far. Oh, is the volume low? Is the mic volume low? Anybody else have a problem with the mic volume? On my side, it seems like it's okay. Twitch is not up, Fade says. Oh, crap. I'm getting an alert from the YouTube stream side that says the YouTube's not receiving enough video something to maintain the stream, but I think that's BS because I see it just fine. It's being sent out just fine. I'm getting some drop frames, but other than that, I don't know what's going on. Sounds a bit low. Let me try something. Because I had to screw with my settings so much, something may have gotten borked. Is this louder? Is that better? Can you hear me better now? Can you hear me better now? I don't know. This is really going well, I have to say. It's going fantastically well. Is the volume okay? Turn up so we can hear the laptop fans. No, you don't want to hear that. Doesn't sound abnormally quiet. Okay. We'll just, we'll stick with it for now and see how it goes, okay? Big Edie says better. Great. All right, man. Well, what an ordeal. It seems like every stream there's something. I promise I'm not doing this on purpose just for dramatic effect, okay? This is really me struggling to try to put on a live stream every Friday and dealing with real computer problems. So what can I say? I mean, it's just the life of being a streamer that's using GNU Guix and a bunch of weird hardware and everything else. Just have to kind of roll with it. If I was using Windows, I think I probably wouldn't be having all these problems, but why would I do that? Why would I make my life easy? What's the point of making your life easy when you can just make it hard for an audience of 50 people? You know, they're just sitting there waiting and laughing in the IRC because you're having computer trouble. Why not do that? Wouldn't everybody want to do that? I don't know. I think something's wrong with me, but you'll have to be the judge of that. A geek's damsel in distress on Valentine's Day, says Trev. Nah, I wouldn't cast myself as a damsel in distress, but I definitely was in distress, okay? You don't see the sweat, but there was sweat. Let me say hello to the people who are here so far. On the IRC side, I see Nakotani, Jeff, Cal, Trev, Ashraz, John Hamlick. I know I saw Glenn before. I missed some of the chat because I had to restart. Let's see. Who else? Left Pad. Thank you, Left Pad. Dave, Glenn, I said already. Alternate Ved, Peter, Big Edie. Who else am I missing here? John, I think I forgot to say hello to you last time. I was watching the recording of the stream, and I think I've missed you. Who else? Rickard, I see, has joined the chat. I think that's it on the IRC side. On the YouTube side, I see Minas Mazar, Enrico, Mike, Cameron, Andrea, and Fine Wine 4.0. All right. Fine Wine says, I was wondering if you try out Fossil as a Git alternative. There's even a package for Emacs. Yeah, Fossil is kind of interesting. Thing is, Fossil is a completely separate version control system. The one we're going to look at today actually interoperates with Git to some degree, so it's something that you could potentially use along with other people that you're collaborating with, but Fossil is a completely different thing entirely. I think it's really interesting because it has a lot of stuff built in, like issue tracking, you know, wiki, and even like chat, which is pretty weird. Got a lot of stuff built in, but I don't know. It's just too like off the beaten path in terms of what people are used to get picked up by projects. And I don't really know that I would want to pick a version control system for a project that most people are unfamiliar with, because then it would be kind of difficult for them to contribute. Now, I know that there are ways for you to mirror a fossil repository to a Git repository and potentially do that bidirectionally. I'm not entirely sure. GJN says, I quite like Sapling as a successor to Mercurial, but Git compatible. I believe that there are some features here in JJ that are like Sapling, at least based on what I read. We'll have to look into it because I'm nowhere near an expert. Let me just say this up front, okay? We're talking about JJ today, Jujutsu, which is a distributed version control program. I'm not going to call it a system. Software? Okay. I'm not an expert in it, okay? The title of the stream is Investigating JJ. So people get pissed off at me sometimes because I will make a stream about something where we're all learning it together. And then they're like, well, you didn't talk about this, or you didn't talk about that, or you were kind of like stumbling around in the manual. I'm like, well, that's the whole point. We're learning this, okay? So disclaimer, I don't know JJ. We're learning it together. That's the whole fun of this thing, is because we're kind of figuring it all out together at the same time, okay? If you don't think it's fun, I'm sorry, but I think it's fun. So this way we're gonna do it, all right? Hello to Delaney. Delaney says, when are we gonna do a deep dive on Datastar? Soon, Delaney. Yes, we will be doing a deep dive on Datastar soon. I'm actually gonna talk about that in a second. You might see it on the screen here. No, you're not bothering us. I'm glad to see that you stopped by. We are talking about JJ today. We will get into that in a minute. Oh, yes. Thank you to SES Copy. Ashraz, I think it needs a name that I can say. I can just call it the copy bot. I don't know. But Ashraz says, head over to the store, systemcrafters.store, as the sponsor of today's stream. Actually, you're jumping the gun a bit, because I was going to say that today's stream is sponsored by the System Crafters Guild, which is something that you can find on the store. So if you go to systemcrafters.store, you will see that there is a section down below. Obviously, there's merch, but merch makes no money. And in fact, it's just there for fun, almost. So forget about the merch unless you just want a shirt. But the System Crafters Guild is kind of like GitHub sponsors, but it's on my own site, in my own thing. So if you want to support the work that I'm doing on System Crafters, take a look at the System Crafters Guild. Just go to systemcrafters.store, and it's down sort of the middle of the page. There's 3 tiers, and this stuff goes directly to supporting the work that I do on the channel. There are benefits to being a member of the guild. Some of them have not been implemented yet, but they will be, because I'm rewriting the System Crafters website in Scheme so that I can actually do some of these things. Because currently it's all written in Cloudflare functions, which means that every time I want to go add something to the functionality, I have to write a bunch of JavaScript code, and I'm a little bit tired of doing that. So I'm rewriting the site. All the benefits that you will get as a guild member will gradually be added as the new site gets written, which is in progress. So become a member of the guild. Cool things will happen at some point soon. I've got some other ideas for what we can do for guild members. So if you want to support the channel, become a member of the guild, all right? So that's the sales pitch. That's who's sponsoring the channel today. The people who are sponsoring the channel, the people who are already the members of the guild. So thank you to those of you who have joined so far. I really appreciate you. All right. Thank you, Ashraz, for the reminder too, because I might have forgotten. Okay. Let me check and see if there's anything else relevant in the chat that I missed. Let's see. John says, before the stream, I was thinking back to my first experience with VCS when I was 16, 17 years old. I really struggled to understand Git until I saw someone else using it on some video tutorial. But Mercurial worked for me right away. I think I found Git easier to learn once I'd already learned Mercurial. So I'm very interested in a tool that has a similar relation to Git in terms of complexity. I'm hoping that it's more straightforward, because what the world really needs is a more standardized source control tool that is not as difficult to grok at first as Git can be. I don't really think Git is necessarily that complicated, but I've been using it for so long that I've kind of lost sight about how complicated Git seems to a beginner, okay? So I believe that we're gonna see today whether it does stand up to the idea of being more user-friendly than Git. I hope it is, we'll find out. Let's see. Morgan says, if it works with Git, I think they made a mistake by not calling this Jujutsu and using the GG command as a front end. Well, it also works with Mercurial and other backends. I think they're probably going to end up making their own backend at some point to get off of the other systems. I don't know, maybe. So I don't know that they want to brand themselves as being aligned with Git because they're trying to go a little bit broader than that. Subversion is pretty good for newbies too. Does anybody actually use Subversion anymore and like it? I mean, not that everybody loves using Git, but Subversion is very kind of antiquated. The model of Subversion is pretty antiquated by this point after everyone's been using distributed source control for 20 years. Almost 20 years, I guess. I mean, Bazaar was before Git. I think I remember learning about Bazaar back in 2005, 2004. Is that one fully distributed though? I can't remember exactly if that is, but I think that was the idea. Okay, so news. What I will say is that my intention is to put a video out about Datastar next week. You're probably wondering, why am I going to make a video about a web UI framework on this channel? Well, I'm a programmer, and we've been writing a lot of code recently on the Crafter Hour streams. If you haven't been watching those, there's a just check all the live streams that have been popping up lately. There's a playlist called, I think it's Crafter Hours. But we've been writing a lot of code lately. I've been making web applications. So there's emacspackages.com, which is not deployed yet, but it will be soon. And also the new iteration of the System Crafters website, which we talked about last week. So I've been using Datastar on those. I'm quite pleased with it. I think it's got a lot of potential, especially for people like us who like to write Lisp code for websites. It allows you to write more of your code on the server or on the back end, let's say, rather than having to write a bunch of JavaScript code on the client side, which I really would prefer not to do if I didn't have to. So I just want to make a video about it to explain what I think is interesting about it, because I find I have a hard time explaining the core elements of it. I'll respond to that in a second, Delaney. I have a hard time explaining like the core value of it without demonstrating it, because it's kind of hard to concisely say what Datastar is. So instead of trying to poorly explain it to people on a one-by-one basis, I'm gonna make a video so I can point that to people and say, hey, you should check this thing out, and this is why. I'm working on a demo application that I will go through during the video as I'm talking about sort of the high-level aspects of it, just to sort of give you my perspective on it as a person who's used a lot of different web frameworks, UI frameworks, etc. over the years, and you know, just sort of talk about what I find appealing about it. Delaney is Delaney's in the YouTube chat. Delaney is the author of Datastar, which I'm happy to see him back here again. He was here on the stream on Wednesday, I think, as well. Delaney says, Datastar, neat stuff, but the author is a sus cult leader. All hail metrics and performance. Yeah, so we also have the whole it's not a cult thing around here as well, so we're familiar with the concept. Delaney says, Datastar is simple, not easy. You have to unlearn the stuff that you've been taught with SPA versus MPA. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think that it is simple, but it is, yeah, I think you're right. You basically have to not think about how you would do UI the way before, and you also have to not, like, immediately react to what the idea behind it is in a negative way, which I didn't. I thought it was great, but maybe other people do, so I don't know. Alternate Vet says, it's not a cult, and then he leaves. Yeah, thanks. All right, SES copy is now SC Butler. Well, okay, that kind of puts you a little bit beneath things here, Ashraz. I don't know if I like that so much, but Ashraz says, is this already the interview, but half chat, half voice? No, we're gonna do that later. Okay, so anyway, video about Datastar soon. This week is my goal. And then after that, I want to have a separate video that's an interview with Delaney to talk about Datastar, sort of like to just get his take on the goals of the project and the current status of the project, because it is pretty close to being 1.0 and fully feature complete. I think there's kind of a feature freeze, a development freeze right now, except for bug fixes. So we'll get to see some more information about that. Osloy says, yay, not a cult. Yes, not a cult. Hello to Luis. Now SE Butler is Scopy. All right, is S copy? I'm good with S copy. That works. It's easy. Well, you better register it with Nixer, buddy, because it will get taken. Okay, so I was just talking about the problems I'm having. Well, I think they're problems I'm having with my Framework laptop, but I do want to point out that there is a Framework 2nd Gen event on February 25th. I think it might be kind of interesting because they're talking about a new generation of their laptop designs, which kind of annoys me a little bit because I just bought one. That's the way it always goes, right? You buy a laptop and literally 1 month or 2 months later, a new one comes out and you're kind of screwed. But if they live up to their word, then everything will be upgradable. I should be able to upgrade to the newer stuff at some point. So I hope that's going to be the case. So they say, we've been hinting that this year is going to be huge and we're ready to share why. In 2 weeks, there's the 2nd Gen event, blah, 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 blah. Okay, they're opening pre-orders on at least one new item on that day. So if you're in the market for repairable, upgradable, long-lasting consumer electronics products, you may want to create an account ahead of time, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're announcing new stuff, okay? For a hint at what they'll be announcing, head to the event page. Tell me what it is. I see a game controller, and is that Cheetos or worms in a cup? I'm not sure. Maybe it's something for gamers, who knows? A gaming laptop, potentially. It says, what problem are you having with the framework? The USB ports are doing weird stuff. Like sometimes they just decide not to work. And I have to detach the extension little dongle things, switch them around to another port, and then put them back. And then eventually they will wake up. Like my USB video capture device won't be recognized unless I start switching the ports around, which is really stupid. I don't know what's happening. I think it's either a kernel issue, a kernel driver issue, or it's a hardware issue of some sort. Fade says, you are USB kryptonite. I do things with laptops that people should not be doing, like running streams. So I think I'm just asking for it. Alternate Vet says, someone has cursed your USB ports. Probably so. I think you all curse my USB ports whenever you laugh at me and you give me shit for not being on time every week. And then it just makes me worse. I'm like totally off the schedule at that point. I'm just kidding. I enjoy the humor. Yes, thank you, Left Pad. You're the one tiny little leg that holds up the entire stream process here, and you're always screwing it up. Peter's putting the voodoo doll away. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it. Okay, back to the notes. So another really interesting thing, we've talked about this a lot over the years, about how the development and contribution process for Guix is a little bit difficult to get into because it's an email patch-based workflow. But the interesting news is that Guix is considering moving to Codeberg for development, which would mean that it would be potentially a lot easier to contribute to the project because you'd be able to send conventional pull request style contributions to the project, as well as have the issues be tracked on the Forgeo interface that Codeberg uses. So there is a whole thread, which I have not read, okay? I'm sure there's lots of arguments going on in this thread, pros and cons, et cetera, et cetera. If someone wants to go and digest this whole thing and give us a summary on the forum, that'd be great. But Ludovic Cortez, the creator of Guix, is the one who is proposing this. So I think that, there's some significant weight behind it. This may actually be one of the first, or the first, effectively RFC. So the Guix project has just established an RFC process. They're calling it GCD. I don't know what GCD stands for, other than greatest common denominator, but there's a new RFC style process for the Guix project to make proposals about things to change in the project. And apparently the first proposal is to move Guix to Codeberg. So I'm kind of excited about that because it might be a lot easier for people to contribute to the project. And if it is easier to contribute, that might actually make certain people who were reluctant to use Guix more willing to use Guix because it's easier to contribute to it. I don't know. I mean, Guix is a kind of distro and project that you're more likely to become a contributor to because, or kind of out of necessity, because packages need to be added to the project, and you want to improve features and stuff. So I don't know. It's a net positive for the project for it to be on a conventional code forge and not just like a Savannah project with mailing lists. Okay, thanks, Dave. It's a Guix consensus document. I mean, it could have just been an RFC, but whatever. It's cool. I like that it's branded. Fade says, I loathe email workflows. And Steve, hey Steve, over in the YouTube side also says Guix consensus document. All right, so let's see. Let me scroll a little bit up. Delaney had said in the chat, hypermedia in a hypermedia client browser, crazy talk. Yes, well, people have been acclimated a little bit too much to the whole React way of doing things, which I think is a little bit too overkill. And I'm hoping we can kind of claw some of that back a little bit. Delaney says beta 7 went out today and V1 tagged defined. That's cool. That means V1 is right around the corner. All right, so John says, do you get cable property failed, -5 errors in your Gene message? Maybe. That may actually have happened. Dave says there was some discussion of the Codeberg move at Guix Days. I would have liked to be in that conversation, that's for sure. Faye says, because email is too unreliable to entrust with change control. It's okay. It's just a little bit clunky, in my opinion. Peter says, especially for packages in a Git workflow, would be nice to migrate packages from personal channel repo to upstream without drama. Yeah, I think it's a net positive for Guix to be on Codeberg. I mean, for people who are really comfortable with the email-based workflow, if there isn't an equivalent to that when moving to Codeberg, then they lose something, because you can say there are benefits to the email-driven workflow, like the fact that you can have all the patches and all the information about bugs, like all the threads about bugs on your computer already synced locally, where you can work offline. You could be on an airplane with no internet, reviewing patches and then committing them locally, and then you'll push them to the repo later. I mean, there's things you can do that benefit you, but I think in most cases, people coming to a project are not going to expect to deal with a email-based contribution workflow. So I don't know. Okay, so that's that. What else did I want to say? That was it for the news. Cool, we're done with that, okay? So that's some things I'm excited about. Now, we're gonna take a look at the JJ project today. I'm gonna pop over to the GitHub repository for the project so that you can kind of take a look at what this is all about. I'm kind of taking a look at it too because I have used it a little bit. I've looked at some of the docs a little bit, but I'm still learning this for the first time. So I'll just say this up front because people were pointing it out in the chat before the stream started. This is a Google project. So if you are not really crazy about the idea of Google producing something that you will be using, then you might want to cover your eyes or turn off the stream, go watch some cat videos instead. But I don't know, maybe it's worthwhile just to see what people could do with some different ideas, because there are a couple different ideas here, I think. Jujutsu, a version control system, and it has 2 birds. I guess they're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't see a stone in the picture though. Maybe they should have thought about that. Jujutsu is a powerful version control system for software projects. You can use it to get a copy of your code, track changes to code, and finally publish those changes for others to see and use. Yeah, that sounds like version control. It's designed from the ground up to be easy to use, whether you're new or experienced, working on brand new projects alone, or large-scale software projects with large histories and teams. Unlike most other systems, it abstracts the user interface and version control algorithms from the storage systems used to serve your content. So basically, this means that you can use it on top of other source control systems like Git, Mercurial, Breezy, which I have not heard of, or hybrid systems like Google's own internal thing, which probably what this is for, is like to bridge the gap between Git and other source control systems and their own internal stuff. But that, I don't know, do we have access to these things, or just sort of like a thing that floats in the ether and only exists behind the walls of Google? Who knows? I don't care. So today we use Git repositories as a storage layer to store and to serve and track content, making it compatible with many of your favorite Git-based tools right now. We combine many distinct design choices and concepts from other version control systems to a single tool. Some of these sources of inspiration include Git. They want it to be fast. The default storage backend uses Git repositories for physical storage. And if you don't know about okay, Ashra says JJ, which is 2 J's, like the bird, the J. That's where the logo comes from. Okay, cool. But still, there's another interpretation. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I would like to see a stone in that image. Just kidding. Okay, so if you don't remember, I think we talked about this at some point. Git is interesting because of the way that it stores information, because you can just sort of stuff any old data you want into a Git repository as an object. So there's a number of tools that will kind of abuse the design of Git to just stuff whatever they want into the Git object store. And I'm guessing that Jujutsu is also doing that to some degree. Probably has its own kind of database entries that is stuffing into the object store, which makes sense because it's designed for that. Jeff says Google's Piper is a Googleified version of Mercurial. Ashra says Darks is still alive. I think so. I keep hearing people using it. I don't know why. Also, they take inspiration from Mercurial and Sapling. So they take something that is like the revset language to select commits. I don't know about that one, but I did see something about that in the docs. We'll look into that. There is no explicit index or staging area. You will see why in a moment. It's pretty surprising. So it's almost like one of those clickbait titles. The one weird trick to make sure you don't lose any of your work. You'll find out why. Branches are anonymous like Mercurial, so you don't need to make up a name for each small change, which is interesting. You don't have to name your branches. So I want to see what that means. Primitives for rewriting history are powerful and simple. Formatting output is done with a robust template language that can be configured by the user. Formatting output is done with a robust templating language. So if you want to, you can change the way that the command output comes out. I guess that means like for writing your own custom commands and tools and things to do tracking of things in a repo. I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense. And Darks, Jujutsu keeps track of conflicts as first-class objects in this model. They are first class in the same way commits are, while alternatives to Git simply think of conflicts as textual diffs. While not as rigorous as systems like Darks, the effect is in that many forms of conflict resolution can be performed and propagated automatically. That sounds pretty ambitious. I would like to see what that looks like in practice. I don't know how we can force that to happen, but it would be nice to see that. All right, it adds several innovative, useful features of its own. Working copy as a commit. Changes to files are recorded automatically as normal commits, and that's what I was talking about before. Apparently, when you run the status command for JJ, it automatically commits whatever things you have already edited. So as you're making changes in your project, every time the status command is run for JJ, it's committing your changes. If you think about how editor source control integration works, it's pretty often running the status command to get like the mode line updated to have like the current status. So you're probably going to be committing changes literally every few keystrokes, which probably is not a big deal. Kind of interesting to see what that looks like in practice. Code Void says, where is EXWM? I haven't been using EXWM in probably 2 years. How long has it been, folks? I stopped using EXWM probably 2022. So maybe 3 years? I don't know. It's been a while. Dolce says, that's actually pretty interesting. It is interesting. I also find it interesting, but I want to see what it looks like in practice. Operation log and undo. Jujutsu records every operation that is performed on the repository from commits to pulls and to pushes. So it's almost like git reflog, but probably it does a better job of tracking everything that would happen because there's certain things that git reflog does not do. It doesn't track so that you can't actually respond or roll back from a certain operation. So this gives you more sort of like atomic control over any type of operation that would happen inside of your in your repository. Code Voice says, wow, your video helped me get set up with it fully. And Felinox says, I think EXW1 was dropped when David wanted to switch to Wayland. Yeah, it was dropped before then too. I dropped EXWM around the time that I went to revsets, window manager. And also had a brief little moment with Stump WM and went back to revsets. And then after that, I think I went to Wayland. I may have stopped back in EXWM for like a week. Can't remember. But I had reasons, so. Peter says, an abstraction is only useful if it makes a considerable step in cognitive load. Well, you could say that there's a lot of cognitive load to knowing which changes are staged and which are not. But if you thinking about my own usage of Git, there's certain things I don't want committed. Like I've got certain changes that I'm not ready to actually include in the staging area to be committed. So if it's constantly committing all the stuff that I am working on, there needs to be a way to more surgically extract changes to make the real commit out of. So I want to see what the workflow for that looks like. All right. Automatic rebase and conflict resolution. When you modify a commit, every descendant is automatically rebased on top of the freshly modified one. So you don't have to think about rebase anymore either, apparently. But I do wonder how that's going to work with like conflicts in a rebase. Because oftentimes you do a rebase and you end up with conflicts. But if this is only talking about just manipulating individual commits in the local repository, then maybe that's okay. I don't know. Let's see. This makes patch-based workflows a breeze. I really don't know why that makes sense. If you resolve a conflict in a commit, the resolution of that conflict is also propagated through descendants as well. It is a completely transparent version of git rebase update refs combined with git re. I think I've heard of that, but I don't know what that means. Supported by design. And a kind of controversial feature, which we were discussing a little bit in the IRC, save concurrent replication. Have you ever wanted to store your version control repositories inside a Dropbox folder? Have you ever tried to do that before? I have. I've put a bare repo into a Dropbox folder, and eventually the data gets corrupted because Dropbox just does stupid things with files that it tries to replicate. So not usually a good idea, but for whatever reason, JJ says that they are able to enable you to use a Git repository synced across a Dropbox folder or a similar tool, sync thing, whatever, S3, and have it not get corrupted by concurrent changes. I'm not 100% certain about that, but I don't know. I don't know if we'll see that today, but they say that this is an experimental feature. Not 100% certain if it's possible to do it that way, but that'd be kind of cool, I guess. Ashra says log or reflog. Sam says for rebases, if conflicts happen, they just exist in the log. You can fix them whenever you want. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's log or reflog in that case either. All right. Fade says, I smell file as a file system. Jeff says, not a fan of committing when I'm just trying to understand what I've changed. Yeah, me too. I'm with you on that. There must be some other way to deal with that in this. Peter says, if you have a storage system which is append only, that should theoretically work. That might be what this is. Because, like they say, every operation can be rolled back from. So if it's like a journal in a way where everything is like an atomic or whatever, it's like a sequential operation. But still, though, what about concurrency? You know, you got with Dropbox, two people may have already made changes to the repo files before Dropbox has a chance to sync them between each other. So how does that work? There's got to be some way to reconcile the fact that there are diverging lines of history in a way. Luis says, is it just me that by reading this, features think, no, I like what I have now. It just seems way dangerous. I don't know. But that's why we're looking at it, okay? We look at weird things to kind of get a sense for what is happening out in the world so we don't just have our heads buried in the sand. Got to see what's new and make our own evaluation about whether it's worthwhile or not, whether it's a good idea or not. Maybe we'll learn something cool. And maybe some of these interesting ideas will filter down to something else that we use at some point. So good to just be aware and to learn from the ideas of other people, okay? Okay, so that's that. We've read the high level. Sorry for reading to you. Let me read to you some more now, because there's other things to read. There is a tutorial here, so I'm going to read this tutorial. Not really, but first we need to install it. So to install Jujutsu, at least in my case, I'm going to download the latest release. Luckily, because I'm a Guix user, and Guix users often have the worst time when it comes to downloading random stuff off of the internet. They are providing a statically linked program built with muscle C so that you don't have to worry about the libc in the environment. So you can just download the unknown Linux muscle build for x86-64, and it does just work. I have tried this already. I know that it works. Now, ideally, I would make a Guix package to unpack this, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. We're just going to try to go ahead and get it going. So I'm going to go right here. And where are we? Oh, this stupid thing with the save as. I'm getting in trouble a little bit with, where are we? Downloads. With Firefox, it keeps downloading things into the sandbox for Flatpak. Oh, does it? No, I didn't see it. Okay, it just wasn't there yet. All right, I'm just gonna unzip that. Now we got JJ. Do I have like a bin folder? Bin? No. Bin? No. What's in my path? Next profile bin, home David Will bin. Okay, make dear bin. I know I added something for that. So move downloads JJ to .bin. All right, we got JJ installed. That's it. How did you get DRED to look like that? Like what? Like this? Go check out my configuration. If you go look at codeberg.org/davidwill/.files, you'll find it in there somewhere. Was that an MP3 in your downloads? Yeah, that's the MP3s that I'm playing in the stream. They're Creative Commons, okay, left pad, give me a break, all right? This is not copyrighted material that I'm downloading here. I'm not condoning piracy on the stream, all right? Welcome to David's Tales of Software Usage Hour. Yes, of course. All right. So we got JJ here. So let's go into the tutorial and see what we can learn. Tutorial and bird's eye view. Ha 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 ha. It's JJ because it's two J's. So they're talking about bird's eye view here. Great. Let's start by cloning GitHub's Hello World repo using JJ. Well, I guess we could do that just as an example. But maybe we don't do that. Maybe we do something else. Because I don't like being told what to do. So how about I go somewhere else? Projects. Oh, come on. I swear, ANSI term is not really working well with my prompt. Projects code. What do we got in here? What can we pull? What's a good idea for something to pull? I could pull Guix, but Guix would take forever, so I don't want to do that. I guess I could do the System Crafter's website again. So JJ git clone. Well, let's try it this way. Git at codeberg.org/systemcrafters systemcrafters site. Fetching new repo. It's doing some stuff. And it's printing a lot of output. Zan says, not condoning piracy on the stream. Excellent addendum, yes. Just ask me offline about what I think about piracy. I don't like it. Of course not. I mean, who would want to take copyrighted material that's probably being distributed by huge corporations? So I can't tell if this thing is finished or not. There we go. Look at that output. That's fantastic. Syntax error near unexpected token. What the hell happened? Am I just going to have to pull open a good old Flit terminal for this? Because, geez, that did not go well. CD projects code. Let's do that again. JJ git clone git at codeberg.org. Here we go. Try it again. Is this sway? Yes, this is sway. Try eat. I'm trying not to install external packages unless I really need to. Right now, unfortunately, this would be a good moment to use something like eat instead. Excuse me. Name and email are not configured. Sure. Can I do this globally? Whatever. No repo. Oh. Did I just do that in the local directory? Okay, apparently not. CD into System Crafter's site. Really need to, what? Terminal breaks, yeah, multiple times during the stream. Probably. I'm with you on that. Okay, so running JJST is short for status. I kind of like the output here. It's kind of nice. I'm guessing there's two pieces of information here. One looks like the, let me make this bigger actually. One looks like the commit hash from Git. The other looks like some other hash using a different algorithm. I don't know if there's some special meaning to these or something. And they're highlighting them in a certain way, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they do that, but I guess we'll find out. So the working copy, which I think is this thing that they automatically commit every time you run status, is probably what's going to be updated there. But then there's the parent commit, which is the actual head, or the quote unquote real head of the current branch, which appears to be master right now. Okay. Highlight seems to highlight up to the first difference. Maybe you're right actually. All right, so let's look at output as it introduces new concepts. You can see two commits, parent and working copy. Both are identified using two separate identifiers, the change ID and the commit ID. All right, cool. That explains that. Sam says they highlight the unique prefix to make it easier to refer to. Okay, cool. That actually does make sense. Let's see. The change ID, however, is a new concept unique to Jujutsu. You can see that our working copy is an actual commit with a commit ID. When you make a change in the working copy commit gets automatically amended by the next JJ command. Important detail. When you make a change in the working copy, where was that? The working copy automatically gets amended by the next JJ command. Doesn't matter what JJ command you run. The next JJ command you run is going to commit to that working copy automatically. So if we go and change a file in there, System Crafter site, thank you. There's a .jj folder. There's two different things here. Config.toml, okay. Definitely have some different things. All right, so let's change something. I'm gonna go change something in publish.el. This file is not a part of GNU Emacs. Well, who cares? Sure, fine. Let's see. So let's go back over into the terminal. So right now it says it's 214 for the working copy. If I say JJST, now it seems that there is a new working copy commit that's already been created. So we've got something new for that. However, what I do notice that's interesting is that the change itself has the same name, ZP, RM, RWM, whatever. Like that has not changed, even though the commit hash has changed. So they're tracking these two things separately, it seems. All right, so a change is a commit that can evolve while keeping a stable identifier. Okay. In other words, you can make changes to files in a change, resulting in a new commit hash, but the change ID will remain the same. You can see that our clone operation automatically created a new change. Let's see. So also, we noticed that we made a change to a file which changed the list of files that are included in the commits that are being made, and the change ID did not change. So it's not based on what files are included, it's something else. So it must be, and Nakatani says, is the name like a branch name? That must be like what this is. A branch name and commit hash or something. I think maybe it's an automatically generated branch name almost. That's a good way to look at it. I don't know. We're gonna find out. It's probably gonna tell us, but let's see. The change has ID and it's currently empty. Contains no changes compared to the parent and has no description. Creating our first change. Let's say we want to edit the README file. Start by describing the change, adding a commit message so we don't forget what we're working on. JJ describe. Now I'll make the change in the README. So JJ describe. Let's see, will be removed. We're just messing around here, folks. Okay, so. Yeah. What's the thing for... Is this in a terminal? Is that why this is doing this? Okay, we're in the terminal. That's why we're having problems. Cool. All right, so we've got a new description set here. We can see working copy now. We're just messing around here, folks. Okay, fine. Note that you didn't have to tell Jujutsu to add the change like you would with git add. You actually don't even need to tell it when you add new files or remove existing files. To untrack a path, add it to your git ignore and run JJ file untrack. So we can untrack a file by doing that. But the change ID still remains the same, it seems. Okay, it does. Let's change another file to see what happens. I'm going to go publish.sh. This is yet another change. I'll pop back over to the terminal, JJ status, and we once again have another commit. It still has the same, interesting. It still has the same description here and the same change ID. It does say working copy changes. So it's telling us what has been changed so far inside of the working copy. So we do get that kind of git status information about what's been changed. We can also get the diff, JJ diff dash git. Okay, so you can get diff in two ways. One is a git style diff. The other is a diff that seems to be coming from JJ, which looks kind of nicer in a way, a bit more clean. All right, Jujutsu's diff format currently defaults to inline coloring of the diff, which is nice. The working copy commits ID changed both when we edited the description and edited the README. However, the parent commit stayed the same. Each change to the working copy commit amends the previous version. How do we tell Jujutsu that we're done amending the current change and want to start working on a new one? That's what JJ new is for. It will create a new commit on top of your current working copy commit. So it's almost like you just keep making changes, it will start committing them internally, and then when you want to make a new commit, use JJ new. So JJ new. Okay, so it basically just finalized the changes we'd already been making. That's fine. That's not so bad. I get it. And the parent commit now has the same change ID, and it has the same commit ID as it previously had before we made this commit. So if I go back here, it was 13684, and here the parent commit now is 13684. So it's definitely the same commit that we had before. Ashra says, who would want to command that essentially boils down to git add and git commit. That's how we ended up with the sync button in VS Code. I hope there's something akin to git add p. Yeah, me too. I think we will see that in a moment. If we later realize we want to make further changes, we can make them in the working copy and run JJ squash. This command squashes the changes from a given commit into its parent commit. Okay. We can use JJ edit to resume editing a commit in the working copy. Any further changes in the working copy will then be amended to the commit. So JJ edit ZPRWMRZV. Yeah, it looks like it puts us back into the working copy where we were before. So, in fact, hold on. JJ edit N. Okay, prefix is ambiguous. Sure, fine. ZP. JJ edit ZW. Cool. JJ edit ZP. Got it. So these highlights basically say that you can use those as the prefixes to shorten your commands. I think Sam was implying that in the chat. They highlight the unique prefix to make it easier to refer to. Yes. So that's cool. That's kind of nice. Oscar says, so JJ squash is equal to git commit amend. Something like that. We'll see, though. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. To view how a change has evolved over time, you can use JJ Evo log. Ooh, fancy output. I feel like I'm looking at a mud or something now. To see each recorded change for the current commit, it's like a ref log, apparently. Hidden. Oh, wow. So that's the initial clone. Then I set my email address. Then I set the description. And then I probably was like editing some files or something, right? Cool. All right, so we also have JJ log, which is a log of the current changes, which seems pretty similar to what we're looking at right here. I don't know what that tilde means, unless it means there's more changes behind. The @ symbol indicates the working copy commit. The first ID on a line is the change ID. That makes sense. By default, JJ log lists your local commits with some remote commits added for context. The tilde indicates that the command has parents that are not included in the graph. We can use the -R flag to select a different set of revisions to list. And this flag accepts a revset, which is basically a filter syntax for selecting which revisions you want to include in the log. So, for example, @ refers to the working copy commit. Root refers to the root commit. Bookmarks refers to all commits pointed to by bookmarks, which are basically branches. We can combine them with the pipe character for union, ampersand for intersection, and tilde for difference. For example, JJ log are @ or root or bookmarks. The 0 commit is a virtual commit. It's called the root commit. It's the root commit of every repo. Root function in the revset matches it. There are also operators for getting parents. What am I looking at here? Osloy says the staging area is what makes Git different from and better than Subversion and every other version control system. This seems like a step backwards. And Ashra says it also contradicts them with models like conventional commits unless there's a way to split the changes nicely. We will see. There must be a way to do that. Let's see. Now let's see how Jujutsu deals with merge conflicts. How long is this? It's not very much longer. Moving content changes between commits. We should look at that in a minute. We use JJ new with the -M option to set change descriptions, like commit messages, right away. So JJ new master. Okay, and that's setting a description. Okay, we're looking at conflicts here. So I guess by saying master, we're selecting creating a chain of commits off of the master bookmark. I see. And then -M is a new branch, effectively. And we're adding changes to certain files. So we've got a few different things going on here. Now we have a few commits where A, B1, B2 modify the same file, whereas C modifies a different file, and that's now rebase B2 directly onto A. We use the -S option on the change ID of B2. Glenn says, I just took Git workshop and now this. Yeah, we're really gonna confuse you. Git rebase -S. Okay, so we're using change IDs here, the source and the destination, to do a rebase. There are 2 unresolved conflicts at these paths. The conflicts appeared in these commits. To resolve these conflicts, start by updating to the first one. Then use JJ resolve or edit the conflict markers in the file directly. Huh. I'm just trying to understand what the process is here. I mean, it seems kind of the same, right? Yeah, I'm not certain yet that this is worth explaining. Let's just try to move forward to the more conventional stuff that we would want to look at. We can try to look at the whole rebase thing a little bit later if we have time, because I think that that is kind of overloading the complexity at the moment. All right. So, operation log, use JJ op family commands to interact with it. So that's actually the ref log, JJ op log. Okay, so we see add workspace default, fetch from Git remote into empty repo, check out Git's repo. I like that they're described. Snapshot working copy, describe commit, snapshot, new empty commit, edit commit. Okay, cool. So that's actually like a ref log here. It's a lot more readable than the Git ref log, that's for sure. Yes, Ashraz. So JJ's model is the files as is are a revision. JJ new, just make that revision permanent. Yeah, that's what it looks like. The most useful command is JJ undo, which will undo an operation. By default, will undo the most recent operation. Sure, you could do that. Fine. You've already seen how JJ Squash can combine the changes from 2 commits into 1. There's several other commands for changing the contents of existing commits. We'll need some more complex content to test these commands, to create a few more commits. We forgot to capitalize C in the second commit. We can do this by running JJ Squash with the interactive option on the 3rd commit. Moves all its changes from 1 commit into its parent. Squash I moves only part of the changes into its parent. So apparently there is a -I command, which is interactive. JJ diff edit. Edit the changes in a commit without checking it out. Huh, okay, you can do that. Use the arrow keys and spacebar to select all the lines at the last. Press C. What? Let's try that. I'm kind of curious here. JJ diff edit -R. It's immutable. Oh, right. Okay, so how do I get back to the new one? This is already committed. There was one that started with N. No Waller. What was that again? What command did we use for that? Wasn't that? Log. Oh God, what was the command for going back in time? I forgot what it was already. Okay, JJ edit. Oh, okay. JJ new. Hold on a second. Let's see what this is. What commands, what parameters does it have? By default, JJ will edit the new change, making the working copy represent the new commit. This can be avoided with no edit. Create a new empty change and by default, edit it in the working copy. You can create a merge commit by specifying multiple revisions as an argument. Okay. Evo log says John, maybe. Repository, ignore immutable at operation. Do not edit the newly created change. I don't know why you would want to not do that. Let's see what JJ edit says. It's generally recommended to use JJ new and JJ squash. How do I resume working on an existing change? Well, we could take a look at that real quick too. All right. What is the, is it control insert? Yeah. I've forgotten how to, God damn. Forgot how to copy text in the terminal. JJ VCS. I mean, I guess I could do control shift C. Is that right? Sure, whatever. There we go. JJ new, then JJ squash, and JJ edit can be useful. Can I prevent Jujutsu from recording my unfinished work? I'm not ready to commit it. Okay, cool. Automatically records new files in the current working copy commit and doesn't provide a way to prevent that. However, you can easily record intermediate drafts of your work. If you think you might need to go back to the current state of the working copy commit, use JJ new. That's really not the answer to the question. There's no need for the commit to be finished or even have a description. Yeah, what if you have changes that you don't want to include in the commit? Like you're like writing 3 different things at the same time and you're not ready for all of it to be put in the same commit. Future edits will go into a new working copy commit on top of the now former working copy. Scroll down, you say? Can I interactively create a new commit from only some of the changes? The equivalent to git add p is to split the working copy with JJ split -I. Okay. There's something like git rebase interactive or HG hist edit. Not yet. You can just check this issue for updates. How can I keep my scratch files in a repository without committing them? You can set the snapshot.autotrack to only start tracking new files matching the configured pattern. Fade says, I'm not seeing this as being specifically less complex than Git. Me either. Me either. It's almost like you can't really appreciate what this thing is doing unless you know Git well enough. And by that point, you should just be using Git, right? Jeff says, JJ kind of reminds me of Emacs VC mode, a UX over a backend, which abstracts the actual behavior to new ones, which means I have to learn how the UX works so I know how to make it do what I want with the backend. Yeah. Gotcha. Trev says, I'm telling you, there's a specific problem that Google needs to solve. You mean not just creating a bunch of random stuff because people don't have anything better to do? I'm not trying to insult anybody who worked on JJ. Maybe there's something here that I'm not seeing that's magical, but so far, it isn't necessarily simpler. Jeff says, and I happen to like VC mode, but learning it and how it maps things to Git is a trick sometimes. Yeah. John says, I don't think that can be what HG was to me. It's far too removed from what Git does. Ozloy says, thoughts on Pygel. I don't even know what that is. I think I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. Okay. So, Sam seems to know some things about JJ. So Sam, are you a user of JJ? Do you work on JJ? S-Copy is helpfully saying, Pygel is a free and open source distributed version control system. Its distinctive feature is to be based on a theory of patches while still being fast and scalable. I guess that's different than Git, because Git is not really a series of patches. It's like objects. Sam says, I'm a user. Well, thank you for being here. I'm actually happy that someone who uses JJ is here because I've never used it, obviously. Yeah, we will take a look at Steve's tutorial. Sam says he switched to it recently and a big fan. Ashra says Steve Klabnet uses JJ. That's unexpected. Steve has a way of sniffing out the newest and hottest stuff and being a little bit ahead of the curve, and then he writes the book on it. So, you know, he kind of establishes himself as the local expert of the thing, which is cool, right? Duck says, this sounds like it's useful if you're commonly mixing and matching patches from different branches. Do you mean JJ or Pygel or Pygel? I don't know what it is. All right, let's take a quick look at JJ split. JJ split help. Help me. Starts a diff editor on the changes in the revision. Edit the right side of the diff until it has the content you want in the first revision. Once you close the editor, your edited content will replace the previous revision. The remaining changes will be put into a new revision on top. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Okay, so this is like a graphical. This is an interface that you have to use in the terminal. Yeah. So let's mark that one. Ooh. Okay, so this is like an expandable interface here. That's kind of cool. So what am I supposed to do? Can I click? Confirm? Toggle. Ah. That's kind of cool, I guess. Expand it. All right, so I can get rid of... I can include this line deletion, but not the other one to leave that new line. Just for funsies. I'll press C. All right. So enter description for the first commit. Fine. Control X hash. Enter description for the second commit. Come on. No. No. Control N is not working. What's happening? This is the new commit. Control X hash. What? Thank you. All right, so now the output says, first part, we're just messing around here, folks. That was the previous one we were looking at. Still has the same change ID. Now the new one has its own change ID, okay? So if we say JJ log, we'll see that we have the new commit and the old commit. So it's been split out. Sam says, I think the biggest shortcoming of JJ at the moment is tools for dealing with splits, diffs, squashes, something like Magic. Yeah, definitely you would need something like that. Louis says, gotta go. Thanks for this. I really miss these streams and all the humor. Well, I'm hoping that I'm actually being funny and not just rambling and yelling about things. Okay, that was okay. So the model then would be do a bunch of work. Oslo says, you're pronouncing it wrong. It's not Magic, it's Magic. It is Magic. Trust me. I've read the manual. So you just go make a bunch of changes and it automatically commits them into a temporary commit. And then if you want to separate the changes out, use JJ split and it puts you into an interactive interface where you can go and basically do it after the fact. So instead of having to go stage hunks yourself into the staging area and then commit, you just have it automatically committed and then you go kind of extract it out into a separate change. So that's okay. I mean, it's not really any different necessarily. The question is though, like one thing I see as valuable to auto commit is that you at least have all your changes in the commit history. So it's easier to go back if you screwed something up, because a lot of times I don't commit changes for a while until like maybe I'm ready to commit something. But if I actually have it automatically committing as I'm going, then I don't have to worry about losing stuff and I can actually get back to previous changes. So it's almost like you by default get undo on all your changes in your code as you're working on it outside of your editor. So you have all that stuff saved, which is kind of nice. And then you can do the same kind of operations like squashing commits or going back in time and editing commits. I mean, I think that's sort of the idea here is that if you need to go edit a previous commit, then you should be able to go back in time and make changes to it, and then it rebases everything that comes after. But they do have the concept of, it's not my git, I'm pretty sure. Anyway. There are immutable commits that can't be changed. I don't know exactly what that means, but anyway, it's just a different way of doing the same stuff. It's just a different way of doing the same stuff, for sure. I'm not 100% sold yet. So let's move on. Sam says a super cool thing you can do is work on several branches simultaneously. You create a merge commit from several branches and you can squash changes onto the desired branch. Okay, it says that the German pronunciation is fine. Okay, it's fine, but is it the actual real pronunciation? Anything is acceptable. Peter says, I feel it is more proactive and finds good logging more important. Well, yeah, I mean, if you have good commit hygiene and you take the time to make commits periodically, that could be useful, but I don't normally do that. As you see on streams, I'm just like hacking, and at the very end, I make a big commit. Which I guess would be the same thing here too. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at the other reference, which is Steve Klabnik's book, which I don't think is very long. Trev has found a post that is comparing Jujutsu and Magic. Oh, okay. Actually, it's on Jujutsu and Magic, so maybe there's some discussion about how to make it work. Okay, so there's also this article by Chris Creco, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, about this. I read some of this, but I haven't actually digested it yet. And he's got some examples here as well, so it might be worth going and looking at that. I have that in the show notes as well. The link to the show notes is in the description of the video, so you'll be able to find that there. All right. Why should I care? It has a property that's pretty rare in the world of programming. It's both simpler and easier than Git. Well, not 100% certain, but maybe. Yeah, so the reason why you're seeing that article and my stream at the same time is because I think JJ once again got on the Hacker News radar, and I saw a post about it, and I think many people are seeing it again. So it's one of those things that kind of just hits the zeitgeist for a moment. And that's why I made a stream. But at the same time, it's more powerful. What JJ manages to do is create a DVCS that takes the best of Git, the best of Mercurial, and synthesize that into something new, yet strangely familiar. In doing so, it's managed to have a small number of essential tools, but also make them more powerful because they work together in a cleaner way. Okay. As a Git-compatible backend, so you can use JJ on your own without requiring anyone else you're working with to convert to it. Means there's no real downside in giving it a shot. Yeah, that could be useful. Travis says, I'm convinced this is a sponsor stream. I wish somebody would pay me to talk about their software projects that are relevant, but it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, in theory, you could use JJ if you use Git for work. You can use JJ to do what you need to do. I don't really know how that's going to go, but that's what people keep saying. I've seen it said in other places too. This tutorial is intended to be read from front to back. You can even follow along with examples if you'd like, but I'm not your dad, so you can do whatever you like. Well, yeah, I guess that, that disclaimer is not really needed. I don't think Steve Klabnik is my father. Okay, so real world workflows, branching, merging conflicts. Git. JJ natively is a branchless VCS, which sounds especially weird coming from Git. Yep. Sharing your code with others. You understand how to use named branches. Okay. Share how you can upload your code to GitHub and respond to pull request feedback that upstream may give you. Well, this is a very practical guide then. That's a good thing. Maybe this is a good guide to look at if you want to use JJ for real, because it might tell you how to use it in the context where you're already using Git. Also, he says, whatever, mom, you're not my dad. That must come from something. Advanced features of the tool, workspaces and co-located repositories. Make some kind of mistake. Maybe you combine two commits that you didn't intend to combine. Maybe you try to fix a merge conflict and you don't like where you ended up. If you ever use git reflog, you know exactly what this chapter is about. If you don't, well, yeah, all right. Viewing the current status, excuse me. right. Using JJ to describe our commits in a human-friendly way. Notepad. All right. I'm on Windows, so I'm getting Notepad. That's kind of sad. Windows shows my original message. Fine. Okay, same stuff we saw before. Okay. Log. You've seen that. Okay. So this is being stated as the simple workflows. You just use JJ new and JJ describe to describe your current changes. And then when you're done working on whatever it is you're doing, use JJ new to keep going. Yeah, you don't have to think about adding files to the staging area, it sounds like. But what about new files? Still, like, that's not the only thing that a person would do in this kind of workflow. But maybe there's different ways to think about things. Maybe you can do, like, branch off of the previous commit and then make some of the smaller changes you need to make. And then have those be a commit and then merge that into the current working copy somewhere else. So that instead of just making a bunch of changes in the same kind of working copy, you treat your changes that you're working on a little bit more atomically, so that maybe you kind of stop what you're doing and then switch over to a new kind of cleaner workspace, make the thing you need to do, and then merge it back into the thing you were doing before. But still, that is, I don't know if that's better for the workflow. That may still be problematic for the workflow because you kind of have to stop what you're doing and move stuff around. So not 100% convinced, but maybe I would have to try it a little bit and see. Sam says, next chapter will show you more interesting workflows. Thank you. All right, real world workflows. I wouldn't say our workflow is great. Yeah, I agree. We want to explore 2 different workflows that are popular with JJ users, extremely flexible. But when I actually sat down to use JJ, I found myself tripping up a bit. With a few more commands, we have nicer workflows that let us work a bit more naturally. We'll start with the squash workflow. We'll talk about the edit workflow, which is popular among people who don't like the squash workflow. Okay, let's look at that. Squash workflow is preferred by JJ's creator, Martin. It uses a command we haven't interacted with yet, JJ squash. Trev says, rewrite it in JJ movement is coming and we need to be at the forefront. Well, I mean, apparently you don't have to. Maybe I'll use JJ while we're working on stuff in streams. Who knows? Because it seems that there's no downside necessarily, so long as it doesn't mangle the Git repository, I think we'll be okay. The second reason I'm talking about this workflow first is that it is the workflow that should appeal to people who are big fans of Git's index, and I think comparing and contrasting the two is interesting. Well, thank you. I would like that. Workflow goes like this. We describe the work we want to do. We create a new empty change on top of that one. As we produce work we want to put into our change, we use JJ squash to move changes from at into the change where we described what to do. Okay, so we're replicating the staging area by creating a commit that's empty and then pushing things into it. So we're in the at, which is the working area. There's nothing in there. We use describe to describe what we were going to do in the commit. Then we create a new change on top of that, which is the working copy. Once we make some changes, we can use JJ squash to push those changes into the previous commit. So we're basically amending the empty commit we just created before. If we only want to add a specific file, you can use that file path as an argument. So you can squash that particular file in there. You can also use squash-i to do interactive selection. So you can do hunks effectively. Okay. It feels like the same thing. It feels like you are basically replicating the staging area entirely, and you're kind of doing it manually. Because Git is doing this stuff for you under the covers whenever you're, using git add, etc. But is it better or worse? I mean, what I can say is that if you're getting things automatically committed into the working copy commit, then at least you're saving what you're doing over time, and you can go back to previous states. In theory, I'm not sure. But still, it's pretty similar. So maybe the next workflow, the edit workflow, would be better. Okay, add empty space in a few places, see individual sections, press C to confirm our changes. Let's see. I'm not selecting any. There's just nonsense stuff I wanted to add to show up in TUI. I don't want to keep them all, so let's just dump them. We can get rid of the stuff that's in the working copy using JJ abandon. All right. This is the kind of stuff I mean when I say the same power but less concepts. We got the tools that the index gave us, but they're simpler because we don't use some of them on the index and some on commits. We use them all on commits. Let's see. It also implies that the same power isn't exactly true. JJ Squash is more powerful than git add because it can work on any change and its parent, moving stuff between them. This gets into the kind of shenanigans you can get up to with git rebase I without the need for another command like that. Simpler but more powerful thanks to orthogonality. Okay, sure. You can replicate some of the workflow of git rebase without having a different command to do it. All right. The workflow is not super different than a previous one. As we've learned, they use JJ Squash to move contents of changes to their parents. Okay. The edit workflow. They use a workflow that adds a different command, JJ edit, along with a second new command, JJ next, as well as a new flag to JJ new. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. We create a new change to work on our feature. If we end up doing exactly what we wanted to do, we're done because it's already been committed. If we realize we want to break this up into smaller changes, we do it by making a new change before the current one. Yuck. Swapping to it and making that change. Then we go back to the main change. That sounds way complicated. All right, is this readable? Can people read this? Create a new feature that's undoing our previous feature will revert to hello world only. We don't have an empty change, but we'll do change our file. Okay, we're done. In the best case, we're happy with this change. We're done. We begin to work more. Use JJ new. Sometimes when we're working on something, we realize we also want a different change, and maybe it relies on this one. For example, say we were working on undoing this goodbye feature, but we realized we wanted to refactor printing out into its own function because that's a terrible idea in practice. Okay. So we have a new flag to JJ new -B. It says to create the new change before the current one. Okay. So I guess the idea is you create the change before the current one so that you can squash things into it selectively, potentially. So we've created a change before the current one we're currently on. It's automatically rebased It's automatically rebase our original change. I'm starting to lose my ability to read. How can it do that? What if there are conflicts? Okay. The operation will always succeed. All right. This change is before the one where we remove the goodbye message that has returned. Wait, what? Editing our original commit, we could use JJ edit, which is where the workflow gets its name from, sets the working copy to the contents of a change, and now changes you make will update that change. JJ next will move at the working copy change to the child of where it is now. Okay. Peter says, sounds like stashing or temp branch is impressive what you can do with it, but who has time for that? Okay. Not sure I fully understood that, but that's fine. It does kind of sound like you're doing temp branches and stuff. All right, so branch emergent conflicts. We haven't talked about branches at all yet. JJ prefers to use anonymous branches rather than named ones. People sometimes call this a branchless workflow. I mean, it's a non-named branch workflow, but there's still branches. It's kind of baked in as part of the concept. What anonymous branches are and how to use them. Okay. Git models branches as a pointer to a commit, and that pointer needs a name, so that's a branch. Turns out you don't really need to name your branches, and doing so is not really worth it. I have heard that inside of Meta, where they use a similar VCS tool, almost nobody bothers to name their branches once they get used to things. Yeah, we know what branches are. Git considers any commit that is not part of a branch to be garbage, so it will garbage collect those commits at some point. Git is very branch-centric. JJ does not think about the world this way. Consider the diagram above. We didn't name any of these branches, yet the diagram still made sense. There's not really an inherent need to name our branches, just like there isn't an inherent need to describe our changes. That said, it would be nice to know how to refer to different branches, even if they're not named. Okay. Next, we want to make a change to work on our hello and goodbye functions. We want this change to be built on top of the certain change. We just say that. Yeah, because you have the change IDs, which are effectively the branch names at that point. Doug says, half of my branches are named as banging on the keyboard for a bit originally. Well, that's kind of what this looks like too. Okay, so you've got two different branches. They have two different change IDs. They have names, don't have names, how do we tell them apart? And we then use their change IDs to distinguish between the two. Coming up with an extra name isn't inherently helpful. Sometimes it can be. What if we had tons of branches? How would we be able to see them? In this view, with only two, it makes sense. But what if we have way more? You can ask JJ-log to use one of those revset expressions to show every head of every anonymous branch using heads all. Okay, fine. I'm going to filter them using this heads function. Sure. Uh-oh. Did the stream stop for a second? Yeah, it looks like the stream blipped. I don't know what's going on. All right. It's called a revset. That's what we're going to talk about next. We got a little bit of time to talk about that. Let's see. Yeah, glitch for a second. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. I think YouTube is less tolerant to glitches. I need to fix the overlay. I see a lot of text being cut off in there. Okay, so what if we want to talk about, for example, a range of commits? JJ has a concept of a revset. Some people just say revision instead of commit, and revset is a nicer way to nicer than to say comset. Okay. JJ supports a functional language to describe revsets. Oh boy. It defaults to @ which is the current working copy. It means when we do JJ new, we're basically doing JJ new -r @ which is to create a change with a parent revision. Okay, so you can pick whatever you want effectively. @ is a symbol. Symbols are a means of specifying a single commit. @ refers to the change containing the current working copy, but a change ID or commit ID are other examples of symbols. Functions. Function returns all changes authored by the current user. That's cool. Most more complex functions can take arguments, parents, the parent changes of X, ancestors, heads, description. Commits that have X in their description. Okay. Excuse me. You can use things like author Steve Klabnik and the description containing the word print. That's kind of useful. So you can kind of slice and dice the commits in the repo. Duck says, when you need your VCS to be Turing complete. Yes. We're going to put loops in there too. Another really useful revset function is trunk. Trunk looks for a remote named origin or upstream and looks for a main, master, or trunk branch and provides that. Since we don't have those right now, it gives us the same as root. Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. Max says OMFG. Why? Peter says, I hope it is not Turing complete. I can miss the halting problem in my VCS is another hole in my head. Yeah, I know, right? OMFG is fine because it's not saying any bad word. Not really. Okay. Merging anonymous branches. Sure. Okay, you can make a new branch that is a merge of two change IDs. Okay. Like Git was not complicated enough, says Max. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, we're just trading complexities here. I don't know that we're really reducing complexity rather than just trading complexity for complexity, and maybe the complexity is slightly less, but it's still another thing that you have to understand. John says, having a good search like that built in is a good feature, much better than hunting through github.com. Yeah, that is kind of pain sometimes. It is a pain. You could do that kind of slicing and dicing with Git on the command line too, but it's a bit wackier because you have to kind of shell out to other commands to do it. Undo, let's see. We can undo our last command with a simple JJ undo. Okay. Peter says, it makes sense this comes from Google. It probably reduces their process complexity. Yes, that's what a lot of this stuff is. A lot of these big open source projects that come from corporations, it solves their problems, but not necessarily the ones in the outside world. All right. Ashra says, yeah, but the knowledge of the other commands is then again reusable. That's the nice thing about learning the tools in the Unix tool set. That's right, because the same tools like sed and awk and things like that aren't useful just inside of the context of Git. If you know how to search with grep, you can reuse that in your pipelines. That's right. All right. Rebasing branches. JJ has a rebase command. Does what it says, takes a change. Instead of its current base, it moves it to have a different parent, basing it again or rebasing it. Sure. JJ commands primarily operate on data structures stored in its repository rather than on the working copy. Simple statement has some profound implications. One of the simplest consequences is JJ's speed. Because the working copy is itself a commit and commits are in the database, it can treat it like any other commit. In this case, the difference is even larger. Git rebase works on the working copy. That's why it has to stop you and make you resolve things in the case where there's a conflict, because it's about to create a new commit from the working copy. And if that's in conflict, it has to be fixed, or the next commit is nonsense. Okay. I don't 100% get that, but I kind of understand the direction where they're heading with that. Rebases always succeed in JJ. It's only modifying information in the repository, not touching any of the files we have in our working directory. This also means that our working directory hasn't changed, so @ is in the same place it was before the rebase. Thank you, scopy. There are 5 minutes remaining. My wife will be thankful to you. Let's see. Fine. All right. Dealing with conflicts. Don't care too much. Sharing your code with others. How do you deal with pushing things to GitHub. Named branches or bookmarks are an interoperability feature in JJ. Other than some sort of main branch that indicates where shared history lives, other branches aren't necessary to get work done. However, if you use a tool like GitHub, which bases a lot of its functionality around Git branches, you'll end up using more than one named branch. Doug says, this means your file change notifications don't go crazy mid-rebase. That actually is, that's a good point. If it's doing things inside of the contents of the repo and not in the actual local file changes, then you're not going to get murdered by file changes in the editor. As it's trying to like pick up on those changes and do kinds of weird things like that. So that's a good point, actually. Dolce says, like the stream. Yes, thank you. I forget to tell people to like the stream, so some help with that is useful. All right, so create a name branch, say JJ bookmark, create, and then call it whatever you want, I guess. Oswald says bookmark is a great name for what Git calls branch. Yeah, it is kind of like that. True. Ashraz, really, that's kind of my job. I should probably have this little floating thing below, say like the stream, but whatever. Like the subscribe bell, yes. I like the name trunk here, but you can use main if you prefer, whatever you like. All right. One interesting thing about branches in JJ is that's different about branches in Git is that branches do not automatically move. Turns slightly green around the nose. What? Make a new change. An extra empty commit lying around. What am I looking at? Trunk is still at a previous commit. Okay, so the bookmark name does not automatically move as it does when you make a commit in Git. If you're in a branch in Git, a named branch, which has to be named, I suppose, when you make a commit, it moves that branch name to the newest commit on head, but it doesn't do that with JJ branches. Ashra says, I stop a Rust Analyzer LSP when I rebase. Yeah, that's probably a good idea because it's going to go crazy and probably crash. Okay, then you can update trunk to point it at JJ bookmark set. So you're basically manually setting the bookmark name. That's kind of all right. You want to replicate Git's behavior, typing an additional command after each change is done feels like overkill, but you don't really need to, I think. The whole workflow in JJ seems to obviate the need for bookmarking everything. And I think another way to look at this is the revsets searching functions that will allow you to search the descriptions of change IDs. That's how you look for certain things you were working on. Instead of remembering what branch you were in, you just remember what you were working on and what you called it in the description, and you can search for it to find those commits again, or those changes again. So you're kind of like moving the naming from the branch to the description of the change. Yeah. Oslo says, tell your wife and child hi, not for me, for yourself. Yeah, I will be telling them hi. I kind of have to. I can't just go downstairs and like ignore them, you know? Before you want to make change, you must type JJ new, Rust is the future, says Trev. Yeah. All right. Anything else interesting here? Oh, working with remotes. Just one sec. Pushing to GitHub. We'll go back down. How do we do that? JJ git push. Changes the push to origin. Add bookmark trunk. Updating the trunk branch from GitHub. Oh, you need to pull them down. JJ git fetch. Okay. So we're kind of handing it off to Git on some level. But I imagine there's some bookkeeping that has to be done when it comes down from the remote. So we describe a change, git push C at what? Okay, so you're just creating nonsense branch names for PRs, which I guess is fine because in many cases, people don't really care. If you're pushing to your fork of the project, then the branch name is irrelevant. Yeah. Okay, fine. Adding commits to a PR. So you make a new change. You have to move the bookmark to the newer change and then push that. Okay? So the real mental change is to make sure that your branch is pointing to where you want it to just before you push, not after each commit. So the workflow is not make change, update branch, make change, update branch. It's make change, update branch, push. Yeah, okay. Rebasing a PR. Move the branch backwards and then abandon our change? What? So you're setting the bookmark to the commit before the working set. Then you're editing it. That's complicated, dude. That's not really better. So what would a JJ native Git forge look like? Rev says, I cannot be the only one who has no idea what's going on in these examples. Oh, I don't either. I mean, like some of this stuff, I'm kind of glossing over it because I'm like, all right, I can see that this is complex and I'm not necessarily willing to spend the mental energy to parse it all out at the moment. Maybe I would later. I don't know. I am halfway interested in trying this out just to see if it feels better than using Git normally. Because I'm curious, I'm curious about new tools, but I'm not 100% certain. I would also have to see how it affects the history of the original Git repository. Yeah. Ashra says, I see them and I think, yeah, sure, we need to use the combobulator with a trifaxler, the way that the logger will be imcambamilar nicely to play with Git. Yeah, we're basically having to make adapters of our brains. Peter says, I like what I see. It seems a good solution for problems I do not have at the moment. Unless it's 10x faster, I'm not jumping from Git to JJ. Yeah, just back up the branch and move it forward, then describe it first and then stage it, right. No Good Nick says, I wonder if there's a nice GUI or TUI for JJ. I think JJ itself has the TUI, effectively. For some of it. I think it's a better looking terminal interface. Git really is kind of meant to be consumed by other tools, I think, and JJ is not necessarily meant to be consumed by other tools in a terminal workflow, let's say. So, Trev says the GUI is GG. I just saw it. Serious. Yeah, doesn't really surprise me. Okay, so I think we've seen enough. We've seen enough to know that there's something slightly different about this. I don't necessarily know that it's easier, especially if you still do have to do Git style workflows on a code forge. I'm curious to experiment to understand it better. I might try to use it on some streams coming up. People will probably have to remind me because I will probably forget to try it, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm always curious to try new things, and this may be one of the things that I do try. We'll just have to see how it goes once I do actually give it a shot. But yeah, I don't have high hopes that I'm going to be switching over to JJ completely, but I don't know, whatever. It's something to try, something to have fun with. So I hope that that was interesting to you on some level. I don't know if it was useful, but it was certainly interesting to talk about it. Keep an eye out for the Datastar video next week. I definitely am interested in talking more about that project because I do see a lot of value in it. I think it's quite unique. And I think that us Lispers should consider the possibility of using that for Lisp-based web applications. So I'll try to make a case for that in a video coming up soon. Yeah, that's it. Hope you all have a great weekend, and thank you all again for your time and attention. Until next time, happy hacking. See ya.